Okay, now in order to do that, we are taking one use case which would be generic solution. We are getting a generic solution. Okay, I'm just emphasizing this generic solution. You will come to know later about it, to reopen any closed activity. Okay, now what are activities in Dynamic CRM? There are like phone call is an activity, task is an activity, appointment, email. These are activity entity. Okay, they are not just normal entity, they are entity as an activity. Okay, so let me just bring Dynamic CRM over here. Okay, so in sales area we have activities. Okay, I have created one task here. So when we open an existing task, we can mark it as complete. Okay, if I mark them as complete, let's see what it's going to happen. Okay, so it has closed. Okay, so like I have to find it in all activities now. Okay, let's just find task. Okay, so this was my activity. Okay, now what is happening over here is like it is completed now. I cannot edit anything. Okay, but there could be a business requirement that I have to reopen this activity entity. Okay, so for this I would be creating a one button over here which I would be calling as reopen, and then um, once I click that button, it will reopen this activity. Okay, for more editing purpose. So what I'm going to do first, let's go to solution page, and I have already installed Ribbon Workbench. Okay, once I install this Ribbon Workbench, this button would be enabled over here, Ribbon Workbench. When I click Ribbon Workbench, it will open something like this. Okay, but to customize any entity with its button and other thing, we need to create one solution. Okay, for that. So because it requires solutions, it works on a principle of solutions over here. So I've already created one solution, reopen activity ribbon customization. Okay, so I'm going to add existing entity, which would be task. Here is a task entity. Okay, I will add it. Why I'm showing this solution preparation is because we should not include details such as forms or plugins or assemblies when we are doing ribbon customization. Okay, we just have to include only the entity. Okay, we should not include any other, because ribbon workbench is very heavy tool by itself. So sometimes it itself complains about, the solution should be plain enough. It should not contain assemblies and other things. Otherwise, it will not work perfectly. Okay, it will hang and it creates certain problems. So I've just added one entity over here. So what I'm going to do, will try to look for this particular solution. Okay, so this is my solution. I will open this solution. So it will open the solution, and then I will see my entity over here. Let's wait for so it has opened. So we have selected this task. So what we are having over here is like we have home page grid, sub grid, and form. So when I open this task, I want the button to be placed on this main form of the task entity. Okay, so there are three layers in Ribbon Workbench, but we can clearly understand like this is form. Okay, if you see mscrm form.task.main tab. Okay, so somewhere here we need to place that button. Okay, so mostly if we see mark complete, we can place next to it. Okay, so what we just have to drag this button and just put it over here. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to define the various parameters of this entity over here. Okay, so new underscore task, and it is reopen. Just say reopen. Okay, reopen dot button. Then I should put label reopen. see the changes are happening over here. We can provide alternative text as well. There's a tooltip also, but I'm just filling out these information only. And what I can just write about detailed description like this: reopen this activity to be edited. This activity moves to the open activity view. Okay. Now image, you can reuse any existing image. I am going to just reuse this one. Okay. I have already selected some image, but you can create a web resource of image and you can find your web resource to be here. Okay. Now, what we need to do, we need to create a command for this button because this command is empty. Okay. So what I will do, I will go here and I will click on command. Now I will say here, this is task reopen command. Now here, after that, what I will do over here is like I have to link this into this particular button. So I will go on to my button and I will link my command over here, new task reopen command. If you do not link this command, you will observe that the button which you have created is not going to display over here on this entity here. So you can quickly analyze like, oh, I must have forgot to link this command while creating this button. So it is a good practice that when you create a command, you just create that particular linking onto this particular button. Okay. Now when we are onto command, there are three different things: action, display rule, and enable rule. Okay. Now let's try to understand enable rule. When do we want this button to be enabled or disabled? Okay, so in this task entity, you might have observed, let me just duplicate this screen. You might have observed like when it was in completed state, I cannot see the mark complete button over here. You see, because this activity is already marked as completed. I cannot do any other operation. I do not see cancel button or something else. Okay, because the form state has been changed, that's why button are also getting hidden or disabled. Okay, that's the reason. So if I just jump onto another activity, another open activity, let me just show it to you. So if I just open task, okay, follow up with Brian, let's say open this activity, you see mark completed is there. Okay, close task is there, many other buttons are there. So because this is again in an open state, that's why we are seeing these buttons. So these button can also be enabled or disabled based on various condition. Okay, so right now we will just put some basic condition. You will see like add enable rule under this command. So inside the button is having one command, and within the command we have these three actions. So we just say add enable rule. So again, it is best practice to define the name here, reopen enable rule. Now in this enable rule, we have various commands. So we'll not go through each and every one today. So we have form state rule. Okay, very important to understand over here, because this is a form state, right? Whether it's a completed or whether it's a open. So based on this form state rule, we are going to decide whether we want to display the button or not. Okay. If I check this state, whether it is saying like create, existing, read only, disabled. So right now I want my button to be enabled when the form has become disabled. This form is become disabled. I cannot do any other operation, or my form is read only. It can work on both operation, whether I choose read only or disabled. I cannot do anything at that moment of a time. I want to reopen this task, right? But when my task is already open, I do not want to enable that button over here, because it doesn't make sense what I want to reopen. Okay, so only when my task is in a read only state, I want to enable that button over here. So I'll go to my ribbon workbench and decide my form state rule is disabled, and then default should be false. Okay, Now another we can think about is mm, let's choose record privilege rule. Okay, what do I mean by record privilege rule is something like that. If I have created this record, okay, if I have created this record, I should be able to reopen and edit it. No one else should be able to re-edit it. Okay, so this is one rule. Suppose I have logged in as Somya. Okay, now I should be able to edit this record if the owner would be Somya only. Okay, but if this record is belongs to someone else, I should not able to see that particular button. Okay, that is privilege rule. This is security rule. So what I want is like privilege type is write, which means an update operation, and I would say apply to primary entity. Okay, now I'll just say default should be false. Okay, so this is we don't have to publish until we all done with all our customization. Okay, now I have not provided any action over here. I will provide that action later on, but just let's see how this is working. Okay, now I'm going to publish it. So publish itself takes a lot of time for Ribbon Workbench. So what we can do, meanwhile we can perform some another operation. So I have to create one, JavaScript. So let's open and just put one JavaScript. Add web resource. Script reopen. It is common to all entities, and that's why I'm making a generic rule. Here is my script. I just want to explain my script over here. I will be calling this function reopen activity. Okay, so I will fetch my activity name, whether it's a phone call, task, or appointment, email, or whatever it could be. So that would be coming from here. Okay, and I was just let me just change it to maybe new phone call, new task. I have to create an action also. Okay, so I would be creating for task. So let's worry about task only. Okay, so it will give me, I will show you in the debug point how it is working. So phone call, we will get phone call. Okay, we do not need this. Okay, one more important point I just want to mention over here. As we are going through an email activity, you see I have shown here over here that we should not open email activity as it is a security breach, because once an email is marked as complete, which means it's already been sent out to someone else, we should not edit it. Okay, but if we really want to do it, then we can follow the same approach to reopen this particular activity, email as an activity. Okay, so we will get the activity name using the xrm page.data.entity get entity name. Okay, based on entity name, we would be invoking an action. So the code for here, the invoking an action is written over here. So this is how we can open any activity. That's why I was calling it as a generic activity. So what I will do, I will just copy this thing and paste it here. So this is I'm creating a web resource. Okay, and I have to create an action also. So while it is taking a bit longer time, so this is save and this I have to publish. So this is a script I have created, and then I would be creating one web resource. Okay, new process. This is action I'm creating, which would actually reopen this activity. It is open. So in this, I would be saying reopen. Okay, I would say action. Entity, I'll say task. Okay. Okay, you will see just how I prefer to do this. I want all the name to be in small letters, so I'll say this name. Prefix is going to be added by Dynamic CRM itself. You will see you have to do a little bit of trick over here. You see, you cannot change this internal name. So that's why I have given this name as. Now I can display name is under my control. So I want to give something like this, which would be change the status. Okay. So as soon as this action is called by the JavaScript, I should make task open again for editing. Okay. Change record status to task not started. By default, it is in this status, so I should choose this only. Okay. Now I have to activate it, and this internal name which you saw, I have to. So there is no functionality added on this button. Okay. Now I would be binding my functionality onto this button. So I'll go back again to my ribbon workbench. So my this enable and disable rules are working fine as I have tested. Now I have to bind an action. So I click on add action. That would be my JavaScript action. Now I have to find what was my library name. It was new underscore script. Let me just see if yes, common reopen activity.js. So I have to click like this, then it will understand. I have to provide my function name. So my function name is this reopen activity. I have to just copy it and I have to just paste it. My scripting part, I will show you it in a debug mode. Okay, to take time. So what we will do, we will try to utilize our time to create another process for phone call to reopen a phone call. So again, what I am going to do, I will just name it as process name is this, category is action, entity is phone call. Okay, action, we have to do it like this way only. Reopen phone call and just add one step. Change status. Phone call would be having different status. Open. And just we have to activate. Before activate, we just can check. Okay, it's just still publishing, so it will not work unless this guy is done. Okay, and what was the another entity? Task, phone call, and appointment. You can just try to open appointment also. So we can create our own apartment. Okay, still publishing. Yeah, okay, this is done. Now what we can check on to, let me just hit this activate button. Okay, let's go back to this completed task. Let me just refresh and so that my script gets loaded here. Okay, now let me just reopen, just click this reopen. So you see it's working. I can edit function anything here. I can just mark complete again. Why do it go always here? What was this one? Was the task? Yeah, editing this description. Okay, now I cannot edit no more here, but I can reopen it. Okay, so reopen again, I can edit it. Okay, so now I just want to show you how it is working in debug mode. Okay, so just have to reopen it. Then you see this is the code. So here I'm getting the activity name as task, operation name is not chosen. Now task based on this is my action name. Okay, now here what I'm doing, I'm finding the entity ID, which is task ID. Entity type is task, and then creating a parameter in this request parameter using XRM Web Online. So I'm just clicking on here, and here if any error it should come here, if it is success then it should come here. Just press this one. Now you see this OK is true, which means the activity has successfully reopened. So now do you